Another thing that women tend to do when we negotiate is we undersell ourselves and leave things on the table. But knowing that is the most important part. So, because I know that about myself, what I tend to do is I will come up with a number that, I would normally come up with. And then at the end, I would increase it by a certain factor before I submit my ask. What happens over time is you start to refine the factor you apply because different people have different scales of how much they undersell themselves. So some people may need to have a higher factor, some people a lower factor. And eventually you start to get a real good sense of what your value is. And maybe you don't need the factor at all. That would be even better. To start off with, what is that first factor number? You can do some market research. You could use that as a starting point. You could talk to people. And you know what? The very first time, if it's not the end of the world to ask for too much or too little, then you can play around with it, right? Start off with a number. If people keep accepting it outright, increase your factor over time with every negotiation you do. If people are saying no, then start to decrease it. And a no doesn't mean you just lost what you were going to get, right? It doesn't mean that there is no negotiation. It could just be one step. And if they say no, you're like, okay, well, then how about this much? But what's important is that you keep this in mind when you are negotiating. And it doesn't always have to be like a big negotiation like a job. It could be lots of little negotiations that you experience day to day. So think about what might be something you are going to be negotiating in the next week. And based on what that negotiation is, come up with a factor and give this a try.